Right now, while you are watching this, your body may be aging faster than it should. Every morning, millions of people wake up, immediately reach for a phone, sit down with coffee, rush into stress, and remain physically inactive for hours. What feels normal has in many ways become one of the defining characteristics of modern aging. Most people have accepted a powerful idea without ever questioning it. They believe that growing old inevitably means becoming weaker, slower, more dependent, and increasingly disconnected from life itself. Stiff joints, chronic fatigue, weight gain, poor balance, and the gradual loss of independence are often treated as unavoidable milestones on the road to old age. My name is Hiro Tanaka. I was born in Japan, and I grew up listening to stories from my grandparents and older neighbors about aging. What always surprised me was that they rarely spoke about getting old with fear. They spoke about preparation, daily rituals, and small habits repeated year after year. Many of them remained active, independent, and deeply connected to life well into their 80s and 90s. Today, I am not going to show you a miracle cure or the latest anti-aging trend. Instead, I want to show you something far simpler, a forgotten morning ritual that many Japanese elders have practiced for generations and that modern life has quietly pushed aside. But in Japan, particularly among older generations, aging has traditionally been viewed very differently. For centuries, many Japanese elders have believed that old age is not something to fear. Instead, it is a stage of life that must be prepared for carefully, day after day, through ordinary habits repeated consistently over decades. According to this way of thinking, the quality of one's later years is determined long before old age arrives, and that preparation often begins within the first hour after waking. The first time I visited Okinawa, one of the world's most famous longevity regions, I expected to encounter extraordinary people following extraordinary routines. I imagined secret foods, rare medicinal plants, or highly disciplined exercise programs practiced only by a select few. Instead, what I found was almost disappointingly simple. Early each morning, before breakfast and long before television or newspapers entered the picture, older residents quietly began moving. Some slowly swept the entrance to their homes. Others tended vegetable gardens that had often been cared for by the same family for generations. Many simply walked through their neighborhoods, greeting neighbors, stopping to talk, or pausing to admire flowers growing along the roadside. There was nothing dramatic about any of it. Nobody appeared to be exercising, nobody wore fitness trackers or expensive athletic clothing, yet many of these men and women remained remarkably independent well into their 80s and 90s. At first, I struggled to understand how such ordinary activities could possibly matter. How could sweeping a walkway, watering plants, or taking a slow morning walk influence something as complex as aging? The answer, it turns out, may reveal one of the greatest mistakes of modern life. Traditional Japanese culture rarely separated movement from daily existence. Physical activity was not treated as a special event requiring motivation, equipment, or a dedicated place. Movement was simply woven into everyday life. Walking to the market, maintaining a garden, cleaning the home, preparing meals, visiting neighbors, and caring for family members naturally created a lifestyle in which the body remained active from morning until evening. Modern societies developed in a very different direction. Today, many people spend most of their waking hours sitting. We sit while commuting, sit while working, sit while eating, and sit while relaxing. Exercise, if it happens at all, is often compressed into a brief session at the gym and expected to compensate for the remaining 10 or 12 hours of inactivity. Researchers studying populations in Okinawa began noticing something fascinating. Many older adults who remained healthy and independent into advanced age were not necessarily performing intense exercise. Instead, they simply avoided prolonged inactivity. Their lives were characterized by frequent, gentle movement distributed throughout the day. Scientists now believe this pattern may play a crucial role in healthy aging. Extended periods of sitting have been linked to increased inflammation, impaired blood sugar regulation, accelerated muscle loss, declining balance, and greater risk of cardiovascular disease. Some studies even suggest that regular exercise cannot completely eliminate the negative effects of remaining sedentary for most of the day. Japanese elders understood this long before researchers began publishing scientific papers. Many of them feared inactivity more than aging itself. There is an old Japanese belief that life continues to flow as long as the body continues to move. Retirement, therefore, was never viewed as permission to stop participating in life. Instead, it marked a transition into a different rhythm of contribution, one centered on family, community, gardening, craftsmanship, and daily routines that preserved both physical strength and personal dignity. Modern life, however, encourages the opposite. It invites us to outsource movement, automate effort, and remain comfortably seated for longer periods than any previous generation in human history. And that may be one of the reasons so many people have come to fear old age itself. Because somewhere along the way, we stopped moving through life and began merely sitting and watching it pass by. But according to many Japanese elders, there is another forgotten morning ritual that may be even more important than movement itself. And it is a habit that modern life has almost completely erased. Before we continue, consider your own mornings for a moment. How much time passes between waking up and looking at a screen? For many people, the answer is less than 60 seconds. Before their feet even touch the floor, they are already checking messages, reading headlines, scrolling through social media, or exposing themselves to stress from events taking place hundreds or even thousands of miles away. Japanese elders often begin their mornings very differently. For generations, many older Japanese have practiced a simple principle that modern life has almost completely erased. Begin the day with the physical world, not the digital one. Long before smartphones existed, older generations in Japan typically started the morning by opening windows, stepping outside, breathing fresh air, observing the weather, watering plants, sweeping the entrance, or simply sitting quietly with tea while watching the world wake up around them. At first glance, these activities may seem insignificant, yet researchers increasingly believe that the way we begin the day can profoundly influence everything that follows. Morning sunlight, for example, plays a critical role in regulating the body's circadian rhythm, the internal biological clock that controls sleep, hormone production, metabolism, immune function, and even mood. Exposure to natural light shortly after waking helps synchronize this clock, improving sleep quality later that night while supporting healthy energy levels throughout the day. Many Japanese elders have never needed scientific studies to tell them this. They simply learned through experience that beginning the day outdoors made them feel better. Modern life has quietly reversed this pattern. Millions of people now wake inside dark rooms, immediately expose themselves to artificial light, remain indoors for much of the day, and spend hours staring at screens. Some researchers believe that this growing disconnection from natural light cycles may contribute to poor sleep, chronic fatigue, mood disorders, and even accelerated biological aging. But there is something even deeper taking place. In traditional Japanese culture, the morning was not viewed merely as the start of another busy day. It was viewed as an opportunity to establish harmony before the demands of life arrived. Many older Japanese still follow this principle. Some spend a few moments expressing gratitude. Others tend gardens. Some practice gentle stretching exercises known as Ragyo Taiso, a daily movement routine introduced in Japan nearly a century ago and still practiced by millions today. The exercises themselves are simple, often lasting only a few minutes, but their significance extends far beyond physical fitness. They create rhythm, and rhythm, it turns out, may be one of the greatest gifts we can give an aging body. Researchers studying long-lived populations frequently observe a common pattern. People who maintain regular daily routines tend to preserve cognitive function, emotional stability, and physical independence longer than those living highly irregular lifestyles. Japanese elders often describe this in very simple terms. Every day has its place. Wake up at roughly the same time, move the body, go outside, eat mindfully, stay connected to other people, remain useful, repeat. Modern culture often celebrates freedom from routine, yet many Japanese centenarians appear to have discovered the opposite. Structure does not limit freedom. In many cases, it protects it, because independence in old age rarely disappears suddenly. More often, it is slowly lost through years of inactivity, isolation, irregular habits, and disconnection from meaningful daily activities. The remarkable thing is that none of the elders I met in Okinawa ever spoke about anti-aging. They never discussed longevity supplements. They never talked about biohacking. Most had never heard those words. Instead, they spoke about purpose, about neighbors, about tending gardens, about contributing to family and community. And perhaps that is the forgotten ritual modern society needs most. Not a secret food, not a miracle supplement, but a meaningful reason to get out of bed each morning. Because Japanese elders have long understood something modern life often forgets: people do not stop moving because they grow old. Very often, they grow old because they stop moving, stop contributing, and stop engaging with life itself. Growing older may be inevitable, growing disconnected is not. And tomorrow morning, before reaching for your phone, consider doing something many Japanese elders have done for generations. Step outside, take a slow walk, feel the morning air, notice the sunlight, move your body, begin the day in the real world. Your future self may thank you for it.